Welcome to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com, and we are at SEC Media Days 2025 in Atlanta. This is our favorite unofficial start to the college football season, and Alabama football is already making news. We've got a really special episode today with several special guests, and our good pal and AL.com Alabama football reporter, now Special Media Days correspondent Nick Kelly. He's on the scene talking all things Alabama football, including a look ahead to the 2025 season. And plus, will Nick Saban return to coaching? That and much more as Nick talks to Josh Pate, former Alabama running back Damien Harris, ESPN senior writer Chris Lowe, college football playoff executive director Rich Clark. Let's go now to Nick Kelly's conversation with Josh Pate of CBS Sports and the host of Josh Pate's College Football Show.
All right, here with Josh Pate from CBS Sports. Josh, I want to start with, you're a college football junkie. What does this time of year look like for you, just reading preview magazines? Just like watching film. Like, what does it look like for you getting ready?
It's the entire structure of July is fun to me. Okay, so you get the best of all worlds. You got your July 4th, you've got vacation time. Everyone else goes to 30A, not me though, including people behind the camera. And so you get like that water slide that you get on top of, and you go down it. All right, that's fun. But this water slide has like a ramp at the end of it where you like hang in the air. That's media days. And then when you hit the water, which is coming out of media days, that's kind of when, I know we have maybe a couple of more weeks to go, but that's when fall camp's starting. And to me, like, you don't come up for air aside from maybe a second at Thanksgiving, maybe a second at Christmas until national championship game, day after national championship game. And so, yeah, you try and immerse yourself in as much as you can. You also, if you do stuff year-round, you try and remember what you said in spring, because that's been like 2 or 3 months ago, and then you try not to like contradict yourself, because you sound like an idiot if you predicted 10-2 in March, and then you predict like 8-4 in July. Nothing's happened. Like, no games have happened. Nothing supposedly has changed. So it's basically like immersion for me by this point.
Yeah, and people just reply to it with clips if you totally change
it's terrible.
the tune at that
it's
point,
terrible.
So.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, so obviously one team I'm sure you've been studying a little bit is Alabama. I want to get your take. What do you make of this team? What do you make of Kalen DeBoer's year 2?
Got an opportunity along with about 4 or 5 other teams to win the conference. Could easily see them winning the national championship. It's also a team that on the low end has a lot of 8-4 clustered into the possible outcomes if you were to simulate it 100 times. And that's without even taking into account what injury could do to a team. That could do it to any team. But I think they've got a shot to have the best receiving core in the league. One of, if not. They've got a chance to have the best defensive back room in the league. One of, if not the. I think Devontae Smith's a good example of a pretty good player that transferred out. I know he didn't finish a lot of games last year, but that's a guy who would be depended on heavily by most teams. And you're just looking at a depth situation that sort of just cycles him out of there. But portal departures, you haven't spent a lot of time talking about that because there really weren't any. The freshman class that they signed last year, I think they feel they disproportionately hit on. I think with good reason, and you'll see a lot of those guys play. I think it also speaks a lot to, we're at media days, and a guy who left the team and then came back 1 calendar year ago is here representing Alabama in Caden Proctor. And I think it speaks to like what's happened, not a reset button per se under Kalen DeBoer, but just like an introduction to his program, an introduction, and that's for both players, staffers, and fans into his way of doing things. I also think Kalen DeBoer would tell you that if I'm him, I got introduced to a lot. But it feels like year 2, there's such a settling in, but not settling in terms of comfort, settling in terms of, all right, we got our guys now. Anybody who's still here had 3 portal cycles to transfer out. So if they're here, they're here. We had a lot of guys that maybe could have gone in the portal or gone 2nd or 3rd round in the draft that chose to come back. Same thing we said about Ohio State a year ago. We're saying it about Bama and Penn State really this year. So everybody's going to talk about quarterback play, as they should. If you get good decision-making at that position, Ty Simpson was rated what he was rated out of high school because he has enough talent. So if you get good decision-making and they really do recommit to running the ball and are effective in that, I don't see many like weaknesses with them. It may not be that they're A+ across the board, but there's very few areas I look at. Pass rush, like I think they can cumulatively generate enough pressure there to where I look at Alabama and I say, I don't see what's going to keep them from it. Like, here's a glaring issue they're going to have to overcome. Maybe I'm wrong, but I look at them from July and I don't really see a glaring weakness.
Yeah, and you mentioned them as an SEC contender. Who do you see getting in their way the most? Who could be the biggest threat to Alabama?
Alabama will get in the way of Alabama. I would say the same thing about Texas getting in the way of Texas. But if you're talking about other teams out there, Texas, Georgia, LSU, those are teams, along with Alabama, that I would see in the main mix. Florida is that quality of team. Schedule's a little bit different for them. Look, I'm hearing Oklahoma more and more. I've been high on Oklahoma. It feels like I've been high on Oklahoma for a long time because I originally in February decided, yeah, I think they're going to be serious this upcoming year. I don't think the flaws were nearly as terminal with that team as we were led to believe. And, you know, Bama folks remember the game in Norman last year, so they come to Tuscaloosa this year. But with Florida and Oklahoma, it shouldn't be this way, but it is this way, that you have to take into account strength of schedule and how the disparity is such between them and even a moderately tough SEC schedule. So I just listed half a dozen teams, you know, in terms of quality that I feel easily could win the league. I don't know that we've said that for a long time. I don't know that we came into any of the past several years getting past Bama, Georgia, or maybe occasionally LSU, maybe occasionally there's a third team in the mix, and it's just not that way right now. And that's good because that's competitive balance. But I didn't mention teams like Missouri. I didn't mention South Carolina. So you could really, if you wanted to talk about fringe contenders, you go 7 or 8 deep and teams that you wouldn't bet your life against them winning the conference.
Yeah, and you mentioned Oklahoma. I'm with you with John Machir coming in. I mean, that's a team that give Alabama problems in November. What do you see this schedule and playing out? Alabama's record right now, if you had to make a prediction, what are they finishing?
I feel like they're a 10-2 caliber team. 9, if I had to make a prediction, 9-3 is the safer prediction. But I'm going to say that about a lot of teams. In the SEC this year, it just feels like a lot of people are floating there. And then it's do you lean 9 wins towards 10 or 9 wins towards 8? Like, where do you lean? So, like with Bama, I would be 9-3, a lean towards 10. Because I think it's one of the teams that, for all the question marks about them in July, you're going to get more green check marks than red X's come week 2, week 3, week 4, when you're starting to really get a definitive grip on the team. So I also think because there is no hurdle that looks too high to clear, I think mentally that does something for you. And I'm not saying, you know, Alabama would ever go in with a defeatist mentality, but there have been some years in this league where they can take this however they want to. If you had Ty Simpson as your quarterback, unless he was just a really, really pleasant surprise, you would look elsewhere and you would say, man, even if we are good this year, eventually we're going to have to overcome Joe Burrow and LSU. Okay, well, we're probably not going to beat them with this lineup of talent. That's not existent. That team is not out there. Arch, for all I know, he may become that at Texas, but he's got it to do. John Matier may light it up at Oklahoma. DJ Lagway may do that at Florida. Lenoris may do that at South Carolina, but they've all got it to do. So no one's proven until otherwise stated that, you know, it's some guy that you're going to have a magic arrow in your quiver to take down. So I'd lean 9-3, 10-2 more likely than 8-4.
Yeah. How soon in your mind is Kalen DeBoer going to win a national championship, if at all, at Alabama?
He will start putting himself in contention for it this year. I've never thought there's much skill in predicting a guy to win a title. Like, we could say that about Dan Lanning. You know, you could have said it for a long time about Kirby. It's an afterthought now because Kirby's got a couple of them in his back pocket. But
sure,
anyone who's old enough to turn this show on is old enough to remember just like 72 months, 96 months ago, 3 or 4 years ago, the talk was Kirby's really good, but he can't win the big one. He's really good, but he can't get over the Saban hump. Well, then he did. So what now? He's no different a coach. His Wikipedia page looks different, but he's really no different a coach. With DeBoer or Sark or Lanning or any of these guys, to me the skill is, do you climb high enough on the ladder to put yourself in reach of the belt? Because if you put yourself in reach of the belt enough times, odds are you're going to grab it once. It's the guys that only put themselves within reach 1 or 2 times in their career. The difference to me is that. Like, you could I grew up a Braves fan. So, you win all those division titles, you win one World Series. I thought there was a ton of skill in having a shot every year. And it's such a crapshoot come playoff time. Well, it's going to be the same way in college football. I think DeBoer will have them within reach more times than not. And he may win 3 of them, he may win none of them. But to answer your question, beginning this year and beyond, I think that's when they'll be a within reach team.
Yeah, let's talk 2025. So Alabama wins the national championship if fill in the blank.
If they run the ball the way they're supposed to, if they run the ball the way we remember Alabama running the ball. I remember being there last spring. I'm looking at Justice Haynes at the time, Jan Miller. I'm looking at that offensive line, and I'm thinking to myself, along with Jalen Milroe, how does this team not have one of the best rushing attacks in the league? Well, we saw it. We saw how it played out that way. It was a huge disappointment to me because there's a lot that works downstream of a plus running game. Doesn't even have to be dominant, but you know what Alabama football is supposed to look like. And it's not supposed to look like 1st and 10, 2nd and 9, 3rd and 8 because you can't push the pile forward and you can't create openings. So if that's there, your play action game works off that. Ty Simpson, I also think, while he will not be counted on the way Milroe was last year, I think there may be some times this season in key moments where you realize his scramble ability is a little more impressive and a little more of a weapon maybe than the general public perceives or Alabama fans perceive. But if you do that, then you don't have to score 40 to win games. If you do that, defense doesn't have to be on the field every 4 or 5 plays. So if they can run the ball in a plus fashion, then I think everything else works downstream of it. I would feel, if you told me that, if you promised me there'll be a plus rushing attack this year in the SEC, I would feel comfortable not knowing anything else other than that they're going to be in the playoff.
Yeah, we'll find out pretty quickly what that Ryan Grubb offense looks like. So, Josh Pate, thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of Media Days.
Yep, I appreciate you having me.
Here's Nick Kelly with former Alabama running back and current CBS Sports college football analyst Damien Harris.
Here with Damien Harris, former Alabama running back, currently an analyst for CBS Sports. Damien, you're part of the media now. What is it like to maybe going back to 2018 when you're still playing at Alabama, to think fast forward to 2025, you and Nick Saban would be in the media? What is that like thinking about?
Well, it's almost like we betrayed the creed, right? Because guys, when you're playing, you hate the media. You grow up to hate the media, and you don't necessarily like asking questions or answering questions. And the media likes to spin narratives. They like to create their own stories. They like to dig deep into whatever facet they can find, trying to find negative things to say about you usually. But I like to think of myself as one of the good guys, so I don't feel like I'm betraying them too much, because I just like to be a guy that just speaks truly about what I see. I'm not a guy that's gonna go and show favoritism. I'm not gonna be a homer. I'm not gonna speak to a certain demographic because I feel like I have more fans that lie there. Like, at the end of the day, this is an opportunity to go out and show the knowledge that I have for the game, show that it goes beyond just being able to step through between the white lines and play, but I can actually break the game down. I can actually identify things. You want to talk X and O's? Let's talk about it. You want to talk schemes? Let's talk about that. Characteristics that build programs, I'm all about it. And so it's been such a great opportunity for me to just continue to dive into my love for the game and continue to be around it and, see what is in store for these younger kids, this younger generation that's, going through what I went through. Well, not exactly what I went through because they're getting paid a lot more, but, just seeing them go through another part of their journey, which is, getting to the ultimate goal of playing in the National Football League. So I love it. I love being a member of the media. I think, being a guy that likes to challenge people with the truth and have those uncomfortable conversations, I feel like that's what's needed in this business, because there are just a lot of people that will just say one thing because they think that it'll get them a bunch of clicks or views, or they'll form an opinion because they think that it'll stick with a certain group of people. If I go on TV and say something and everybody in America disagreed with it, I would feel no differently than if they did, because at the end of the day, I got up there, I told my truth based on what I say. I have experiences to draw based off of, a lot of great experiences. So it's really just been a match made in heaven for me, truly.
Yeah, you talk about narratives. One that already it's Monday of SEC Media Days that is making the rounds thanks to Greg McElroy that would Nick Saban ever get back into coaching? You played for the guy. What's your take on that?
I think if given the proper opportunity, I don't think that you could pay him not to take it, to be honest with you, because I remember back when Coach Saban retired, I was at Topgolf, and I was actually with a buddy of mine that I played with in New England, and we were just sitting there, and he just looks at me, he's like, dude, when do you think Saban's going to retire? And I was like, when he physically cannot walk off the field. When somebody has to pick him up and carry him off the field, that might be when he retires. And I kid you not, 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later, every TV on Topgolf, even the TVs that you thought were just like the gameplay monitors, they were all breaking news. Nick Saban's retired. And I'm just like, this don't feel right. This don't feel right because he can still do it. And obviously, not only with him being a member of the media, but now being somebody who sits in front of Congress, somebody who advocates for the purity of the sport and for the betterment of the circumstances surrounding these kids so that they're prepared for the real world. Like, this is a guy who loves college football. This is a guy who doesn't just step away because he's like, you know what, I served my time, I did what I was supposed to do, I just want to watch sunsets now. That's not Nick Saban. He's not built that way. He wasn't that way when I played for him. I'm sure a lot of other guys could attest to the same thing. So obviously we all know that he still loves college football. I mean, heck, you see him. I've seen videos of him on social media in Tuscaloosa in a box, and he's scouting the game. He's sitting here writing down plays. He's sitting here doing all these things. And I'm sure some of it is for college game day, but I'm sure majority of it is just because that's what Nick Saban is. He is college football. So I'll say it again, given the proper opportunity, given the right circumstances, I think it would be a no-brainer for him. Now, Miss Terry, on the other hand, I don't know if she would agree because I know Miss Terry, and she loves having Coach Saban at home. But, again, like, if that's what's destined for Nick Saban, which it seems like it is, you can't stop destiny.
Yeah, if that Terry sign-off's not there.
Well, I will say this, though. If she does not sign off on it, I don't know if he will because, especially now that he's stepped out of coaching for a little bit and he's made Miss Terry happy. Now, imagine taking that happiness back. I don't know how well that would go over.
I mean,
he just won an Emmy.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, just seems like he's living his best life.
He does, right? He looks so happy. He looks very – and now what I will say is, the Nick Sabans that we see coaching with the red face, with the veins popping out of his neck, yelling at people, looking, really, really unhappy in that moment. That's probably some of the happiest moments of his life because he's doing what he loves. He's coaching these kids. He's coaching us to be the best players, more importantly, the best young men that we can be. So, it looks like he's much happier now, but really is he? Because, again, those rants, those ass chewings that we used to talk about, like, those were all done out of love. Those were all done out of coming from a happy place and trying to make the people around him better. Sometimes it was players, sometimes it was staff. So, he definitely looks happy. I'm sure he misses it a lot. I'm sure he would be happy regardless. Because, again, you stay home, you got a happy wife, you got a happy life. You get back to coaching, you're doing what you feel like you were called to do, not trying to speak on his behalf. But, I think that he can't go wrong. Nick Saban, clearly, he's already won at life.
So I feel like the natural next question then, what's your best Nick Saban story?
Oh, wow. Well, what type of story do you want? Do you want you want a funny story? You want a story of when I thought my life was gonna be over and flashed before my eyes? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna give you my best Nick Saban story right here, right now. It literally just popped in my head as we were sitting here, and you asked me because I tell people this story all the time. It's not funny. It's not a joke. This is what Nick Saban is about. So, my senior year, we played Tennessee on the road. Right now, the only time in my 4 years at Alabama that I was ever late to anything was before this Tennessee game on the Friday before. We do our meetings, we go through a little walkthrough, then we get on the plane, we fly out to wherever we're going to go. Now, that Friday morning meeting, I was late, just straight up. That was mad loud. I'm going to make sure I talk closer to the mic. But that Friday morning, ended up late, overslept, and I showed up, right? And I kind of snuck in, and I had told some people, like, yo, hey, I'm late. Like, I'm going to be late. I apologize. Like, what's the best way to walk in the room? Because the number one thing you don't do is walk into a Nick Saban meeting late. So they told me, they were like, listen, just come in, just lay low. We'll figure it out from there. So I'm like, okay. So the rest of that day, me and Coach Saban never talked. We never spoke. And so I'm like, okay, this is weird. Then you get to Saturday, and right before we're about to go out for warm-ups and stuff, Coach Saban comes up to me, and he talks to me, and he's like, Damien, I know you were late yesterday. And he was like, because of that, we're going to have to go with the other guy, which was Josh Jacobs. Not a bad option at all. He's like, we're going to have to play the other guy today. Your job is to just be a cheerleader, basically. And I said, okay. And he told me, he started to walk away, and then he turned around and he looked at me. He was like, I want you to understand, this isn't because you were late. This isn't because, you made a mistake. It was because you didn't come talk to me about it. Because you didn't take ownership of your mistake. Because you didn't have the self-accountability to come look me in the face and tell me, hey, coach, I was late. As somebody who, ended up being a permanent captain. I got my footprint at Denny Chimes. And he was like, being that guy and not coming to talk to me about that, he was like, I felt like that was a lack of accountability. And because of that, I feel like you should be punished. Not because you made a mistake, but because you just didn't have any accountability and you didn't own up to it. And I was just like, that was like one of the most powerful moments to me, because that was when I started to realize truly, because, coaches always talk about, these are life lessons. These aren't football lessons. Like, you hear that, in Little League. You hear that in middle school, high school, etc. That was the first time in my life that I felt like I was learning a life lesson through football. And that's when I realized football is, for as much hype as we give this game, it's a vehicle to teach us how to live our lives a certain way, how to have a certain level of discipline, how to have a certain level of respect, detail orientation that will benefit us long after we're done playing football. And that for me was it was an aha moment for me.
That's awesome. I mean, something you can tell your grandkids kind of
Yeah.
someday of like, hey,
Yeah.
here's why accountability is important. But
Yeah, absolutely. I got a 1-year-old son and another one on the way, and I tell people all the time, like, there's so many. I can go through almost any Nick Saban speech. I can pull one up on YouTube where he's talking about football or talking about this team or whatever, and I can tell you exactly how that applies to me in daily life right now, as a husband, as a father, as a member of the media, as a member of society. Like, I can draw from any single one, and you're like, okay, he's talking about football right here, and I'm like, no, he's not. This is what he's talking about. Like, obviously, we're talking ball because that's the sport we all know and love, but again, it ends for all of us. So we have to take what we learn from this wonderful game that we love so much and then apply that for the next, hopefully 60, 70 years of our lives.
Speaking of which, have you and Nick Saban compared notes on being analysts?
We actually have right here in this building. I was here at the College Hall of Fame a couple months ago with my son, actually, and I just got wind that Coach Saban was going to be here. And so I was like, well, I got to go talk to him. I mean, what else would I do? And, we talked for a little while, but then I started asking him some in-depth questions. And the biggest one, I think the most compelling one would be, how do I go about handling my business at my new job without, upsetting this group of people or without rubbing this group of people the wrong way? Because truthfully, that's not my intention. My intention is just to get up here and be truthful and talk about what I see and what I know and draw from experiences. But obviously, sometimes I have to say something about Alabama that people don't want to hear. And it's not comfortable for me to have to do that, just like it's not comfortable for the response that is usually to that, because yes, I am a captain there. I played there. I won national championships there. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like I have a job to do. And so those emotions can pull you in different directions about how to do your job. So I just asked him, and he gave me a very point blank answer, because I think if there's anybody that's more Alabama football than I am in terms of love and appreciation and respect, that would be Nick Saban. And so we talked about that. He gave me a lot of insight as to how I could continue to better myself in this new business that I'm in, this new avenue of life. And, again, just like all those things he taught me in football, I know that I'll be able to apply a lot of these things to life as well. So I'm just grateful for his mentorship, not only during my playing days, but also now, fortunately, we're in the same career path, so I can still, lean on him and call him for any type of advice or, any notes to make me better at what I do.
So before we let you go, we are going to get you to say something about Alabama.
Okay.
So we'll see where you fall on that.
Okay.
Just give me your overall thoughts on this Alabama team and what you make of DeBoer's year 2.
I think this is a year of opportunity for everybody, for the entire team, for Coach DeBoer, for Ty Simpson, for Keelan Russell, for Jan Miller, LT Overton. Like, this is nothing but a year of opportunity. And why is that? It's because you're coming off a year where you didn't accomplish what you wanted to accomplish. So if anything, this whole offseason is full of nothing but motivation, nothing but preparation. You can look back on a lot of things from last year and be like, okay, see, we didn't do this very well, and then look where it got us at the end of the year. If I'm Coach DeBoer, there might be something that he had alluded to early on in the season or during training camp that didn't get fixed, and then at the end of the season, it was still a problem that was rearing its ugly head. So this is an opportunity for Kalen DeBoer, first of all, to get people off of his back. There have been people calling for his job already after year 1. That's not necessarily how this business goes. But again, this is a program that is used to championship or bust. So navigating that, looking forward to this year, all I see is opportunity. You got Ty Simpson. Everybody seems to think that he's going to be the starting quarterback. And a lot of things that I'm hearing is because he's the safest option. Okay, well, if I'm a quarterback, the starting quarterback at the University of Alabama, and I'm essentially labeled a safety valve, then what is that? That's motivation and opportunity to go out and prove I can be the guy. And then you've got a young freshman, a talented freshman in Keelan Russell, who has that same opportunity. Everything about the University of Alabama is about having the opportunity to turn this around. And that's what they need to focus on. That's it. I mean, obviously there were things that were done last year that didn't work, and there were areas that could definitely be improved. So you take those lessons. I mean, you hear it all the time in songs. Like, I take a lot of L's, but they're not losses. They're just lessons. Like, let last season be a lesson. There were reports about guys being late to meetings, guys, being too focused on jewelry, the attention to detail slipping. Okay, it's a new season. You haven't lost any games yet. You just got a bunch of lessons in your back pocket that you can pull from and motivate your guys with throughout this upcoming season. If they do that, this isn't a talent problem. This isn't a coaching problem. Like, we know Alabama recruits the best players. We know Kalen DeBoer is a winner everywhere he's been. There's just certain nuanced things. There's certain foundational pieces that were missing last year. Again, none of those, you don't have to look at those as losses because that season's over with. If you're not Ohio State, then you basically lost the season. Take those L's, turn them into lessons, and then you do that, this Alabama team will be just fine.
Damien Harris, we appreciate you so much for joining us, and glad to have you in the media. So hope you keep enjoying your time in it.
Thank you so much.
We go now to Nick Kelly with ESPN senior writer Chris Lowe.
Here with Chris Lowe from ESPN.com. Chris, we're in talking season, and already it's been quite the Monday. Notably, former Alabama quarterback Greg McElroy mentioned the potential of, is Nick Saban ever going to come back to coaching? You broke the news of Nick Saban's retirement. What's your take on him ever considering coaching again?
I don't see it. I guess you never say never. Nick will be 74 this October. I think probably the person who would make that decision would be Miss Terry. I don't think Nick makes that decision. So I'm being a little facetious there. But when he walked away, it was hard for him to walk away because he loves coaching. He loves being in the locker room, being with the players. But when he made that decision to walk away, I think it was for good. I don't ever see him get back in the NFL. I know he's not crazy about the climate right now in college football in this era of rev share, NIL, whatever you call it. Of course, it'll change 10 times the next year. Now, he's great at adapting and great at evolving as he proved his entire career, but I just don't see any coaching horizons out there for him. But he's a competitive guy. I know that. The thing I wondered, and I asked him, when he walked away, was, how are you going to feel your competitive fix? And he said, well, I can't play enough golf. I think doing TV has really helped him because he dives into prep for TV like he would for an opponent that week. And I know he enjoys doing it. He's really good at it, obviously. So, I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
He's busy winning sports Emmys now as well.
Right, that's
so
right.
He's still winning.
Yeah, he's really good at TV. I knew he would be. He's sort of himself, and I don't think he never was going to be anything other than himself when he did TV. And when you see on TV, when you're sitting with him talking to him, he's exactly the way he is then. It's not like he's not a pro wrestler. He's not going to change all of a sudden when the camera comes on. That's exactly who he is. Same as his commercials. People ask me about that VRBO commercial. Well, he's really good in these commercials. I'm like, he's not acting. That's exactly who he is.
So let's talk about the guy who is coaching Alabama now, Kalen DeBoer. What do you make a year two in this team and where they're at right now?
I think it'll be a lot better. I think in particular on defense. I really do. I think they brought in some guys. I think getting back Deontay Lawson in the middle, I think is huge for this team. Certainly if he is healthy, which I think he will be. They were able to keep some guys, and I think on offense, the big factor I think will be playing more to the way Kalen wants to play. Bringing in Ryan Grubb on offense. They were together and were so successful with their offense there at Washington. I think you'll see a different, I won't say a different version, but a version of offense closer to what you saw at Washington in year two. And it's just more, I think he's more comfortable. I think they're more comfortable with him. When I went to see him in the spring, some of the kids on the team were joking around that they're seeing more of the bad cop side of Kalen DeBoer, that sometimes he was a little hesitant to be the bad cop last year. And not that that's ever really been his style, but I do think Ryan Grubb sort of will serve in that role and help. But I just think better across the board personnel. I just think they're going to be better, certainly on defense. They weren't horrible on defense last year, but I think they'll be better, closer to what we're all used to Alabama being on defense during some of Nick's best years.
Yeah, and how much do you think that continuity, just because in the portal era there's so much change and so much just up and down, hey, this guy's gone, this guy's staying kind of deal. I mean, they kept most of their defense together.
Yeah.
How do you think that impacts their ability to keep teams out of the end zone?
Well, and especially second year with Kane there as a defensive coordinator. Same system, as you say, most of the same players. I think they're going to be really good in the secondary. Maybe, if not the best, one of the best safety duos in college football. They're on the back end. And if you're good on the back end and you got guys up front, the one area I don't know that they're going to be elite is rushing the passer on the edges. I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but I don't see a Will Anderson on that roster. I don't see a Dallas Turner. I don't see a guy like that who's just a dynamo, a finisher. And now, they may have some guys that grow into that role or get better and develop. That's if you ask me, all right, where's the one area on defense that they may not be just elite? Right now, I would say rushing the passer. But I do think everywhere else in the middle of that defensive line, the linebackers, again, I think you can't understate as a leader and as a playmaker, assuming that Deontay's healthy, getting him back there in the middle of that defense is a major, major deal for Alabama.
And on the offensive side of the ball, Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb have said if the season started today, so to speak, that Ty Simpson would be the starter. What have you heard about the quarterback battle? What do you know about that situation and how that's looking?
I'm not surprised. I feel like Ty would be the guy, and he would have to play his way out of the position in the preseason. He certainly didn't do anything in the spring to do that. 2 years ago when Jalen and he were competing for that job at 23, that staff, including Nick Saban, went into that spring thinking Ty Simpson was their quarterback. Thought he would be the guy that would win the job. Not that they didn't think Jalen could do it. They just felt Ty was a better fit. He just didn't play well. Played hesitant. Didn't make a lot of plays, made some mistakes. Milroe didn't play great either that spring. Remember, they brought in Buckner after the spring. So they weren't convinced they had a quarterback at that point. And I think what happened is Milroe sort of won the locker room over. And after that, really, I wouldn't say really bad, but the mistakes he made in the Texas game, he got benched. I think he pouted a little bit in practice to play the other two kids. And Nick said, hey, listen, if you're going to be my quarterback, these are the things you got to do. And to Jalen's credit, he got better and better and bounced back from that. And then Ty just never got a shot after that. So he wasn't too far off a couple years ago, and Milrose sort of took advantage of some of his, I won't say he went into his shell, he just didn't play with a lot of confidence. I think having been around now for a while, but this is, what, 4th year on campus? He's hung in there. He's a coach's kid. I think he's had the wherewithal for him to sort of stay the course. I think that will help him when things go badly for him. And he's going to have some dips this year, but I think being able to move around and make some plays when things break down will help him in what Kalen wants to do on offense and sort of take what they give him. I know they felt good last year going into the season with the way he played. If something happened to Jalen, or if he played poorly, or if he got hurt, the Ty would be ready. So I'm not surprised that he's the guy. And unless he gets hurt or something happens, I think he'll be the guy for the whole year.
Yeah, as far as the SEC race, I think a lot of folks think that Alabama will be in contention as there are many years. Who is the biggest threat to Alabama, do you think, in the SEC?
I think the way Sark has recruited players at Texas and the way they'll continue to recruit, they're always going to be a factor. They seem the last couple of years to get over that hump of not being able to win the games they needed to win, been in the playoff or been right there in the hunt. You know, Georgia to me is still, now with Nick gone, and even though they didn't get to the championship game, I think what Kirby has done really from his second year there all up to now, I don't think anybody, I would say even Saban the last couple years didn't recruit and develop at the level Kirby has. Now, it's going to be interesting. They don't have a quarterback that you would point to right now and say, all right, this guy's an NFL guy. You know, he's an elite thrower. I mean, I don't think that I don't think it's fair to say that Stockton can't play, but he's played on big stage last year in the playoff. But we haven't seen him do it for the whole season. And so we'll see how he steps in that role. They still are good on defense. They've got he brought in some key portal guys. Those two teams in particular, Texas and Georgia, I think are, if you said who are the teams that Alabama would sort of have to weed out to be the top dog again, I would say it would be those two. I think LSU is going to be better than they've been under Brian Skelly. This should be their best team since he's been there. I really believe that. They seemingly scored big in the portal. They've got experience at quarterback, a guy who's played. I'd be surprised if LSU's not a real factor in the race. I think they're a playoff team this year. I really do. And there's other teams. You know, the SEC last year was different than it was from 16 to 23. You had a lot of teams that were capable of beating up on others because it was really Georgia, Alabama, Georgia from 16 to 22. LSU had that great year in 19. But you didn't have a lot of these other teams rising up and winning games. You didn't have Vandy beating Alabama. You didn't have Tennessee losing on the road at Arkansas. Some of those types of games last year. You didn't have Ole Miss losing to Kentucky, the only game Kentucky won all year. And then Ole Miss turned around and beating Georgia by 3 touchdowns in Oxford. I think you'll see more of that this year. I think you'll see more teams beat up on each other. I think there's a group of, outside the 3 we mentioned, there's maybe 5 other schools, if things go right and they stay healthy, that could at least play a factor in the race this year. I think we'll see, in a lot of ways, a sort of a repeat of last year.
Yeah, well, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it myself and can't wait until we get things rolling in August. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think there's more balance. And, for all the criticisms, and outside the SEC, people want to criticize it and say, well, it was a 2-team or 3-team league. There was some validity to that from 16 to 23. And, and then you throw in LSU. But I think last year and this year, I think we're moving closer to it being a team where you could go 6, 7, 8 deep on any fall Saturday. One of those teams could beat, one of the top dogs. I was in Nashville last year for the Texas-Vandy game. People forget Texas had to recover an onside kick at the end of the game to hold on and win that game. They were up by 2 touchdowns against Tennessee in their game in Nashville, and Tennessee came back and won the game. I think we'll see more of that this year. I think we'll see more unpredictability in the league than maybe we were used to seeing over the last 8-9 years.
Well, Chris Lowe, ESPN.com, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see what the rest of talking season's like.
Look forward to it.
Here's Nick Kelly with College Football Playoff Executive Director Rich Clark.
Here with Rich Clark, Executive Director of the CFP. Rich, I just would love to hear from your perspective what your job looks like. Just help fans understand kind of what your role is and all the things you do in that role.
Well, first, thanks for having me. It's great to be able to talk about football and my role in particular. I've been in it for a year now, so it's been pretty awesome. I was in the Air Force a year ago and retired from the Air Force, and now I get to be the executive director of College Football Playoff, and it's amazing. And I'll say that it sort of has 3 different elements or aspects. The first one is to help the conference commissioners, the 10 FBS conference commissioners, plus the athletic director of Notre Dame, to make the decisions about the college football playoff, how it's executed, what the format looks like, how the revenue is distributed, everything that has to go on to make the playoff happen is their decision. They get the vote, they make the decisions, and it's my and my team's job to help them to get there. We provide the data, we bring them together in different meetings, and then we get them to a good decision. The second aspect is to run the selection process. So we manage the selection committee the last 5 seasons plus the conference championship weekend, so 6 different sessions where we rank order 1 to 25 all of the top 25 teams in college football. And that's 13 selection committee members, which we also help select the selection committee members. And then we bring them in those 6 times and we run the whole process so that they can vote and pick those top 25 teams and then place them into the bracket for the college football playoff. The third aspect is we actually execute the games. So last year was the first season of the 12-team playoff, so that was 11 games. We are the ones that work with the first round. It's the campus games that get the home team advantage for the first round of the playoff. We work with our 6 New Year's 6 bowl partners to execute the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and then we choose the city each year that will host the championship game, and we work with all of our partners to execute those 11 games, and that's all I get to do. And it is amazing, and I am honored and blessed to be a part of it.
Well, and I should say thank you for your service as well,
No,
for your time in the
honored.
Air Force. But
Yeah, thank you.
Well, and you mentioned before, can't see it on camera, but the trophy from the Air Force right behind us here.
Yes,
You're on a few of
Commander-in-Chief's
those teams.
trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 of them.
Yeah, so your time, with the Air Force, playing football as well. I mean, just tell me about just how that experience helped prepare you for this role.
It was what brought me to the Air Force Academy. I got recruited to play football at the Air Force Academy back in 1982 and played 4 years, lettered 4 years, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And the Air Force Academy is designed to build leadership and to help people define their personal leadership skills. But I will say, as much as the Air Force Academy helped me to do that, Air Force Academy football helped me even more, because you learn lessons in football that you can't learn anywhere else, and really in any sport. But there's just certain lessons that you get, and I always call football a leadership laboratory, where you put into practice everything you know every day at practice, every Saturday working with your teammates in the off season. You're learning to lead and to be a part of a team. So I attribute everything that I've been able to do in my life to both the Air Force and football. So it's an honor for me to first get to serve in the Air Force. Now I get to serve college football and give back to the things that gave so much to me.
Yeah, so let's talk CFP in terms of, I think fans know that there are things that are changing and things are being discussed.
Sure.
Maybe if you could, just in summary, like update folks where things are at in terms of what the options we're looking at right now, and just kind of give a sense of where things are at.
So for next season, we are set. This coming football season, we're good with our format. It's going to be the same 12-team format that we had last year. The only difference is that instead of the top 4 conference champions getting a bye into the playoff, this year we will not reseed. It'll be a straight seeding. So they will be seeded as they were ranked by the selection committee. So the top 4 teams as ranked will be the teams that get a bye. That'll be the only change for this coming year. Now, we're talking a lot, though, about the year after this coming one, 26 football season. In that one, we're looking at a few different things with regards to the format. First, how many teams? We're not sure if it's going to be at 12, 14, or 16. And then the format, the 2 sort of prevalent ideas here are that it'll be an automatic qualifier format, where there's a predetermined number of qualifiers for the playoff from each conference, or will it be a straight seeding format that's based on the ranking from the selection committee? And this is up to the commissioners to make that decision on what the format is, what the number of teams that we bring into the playoff are, and those discussions are ongoing. And it's been pretty good. People are sort of banging their fists going, when are you going to decide? But to be honest, this is not a decision that they're taking lightly. They're requiring a lot of information. They want to think through this because we don't want to rush to a decision and then decide that maybe we didn't get it right in a couple of years. So they're trying to think through the whole thing and really come to a decision that we can execute for some time to come. So big decision they have, and we're doing all our best to help them get there.
Sure. We're in July right now, so we got a ways before the next CFP field is going to be selected. Strength of schedule is always something that gets discussed and debated. How do you think that should factor into this? What's your view on strength of schedule?
I think strength of schedule has to factor in prominently because each team plays a different slate of teams. And sometimes even within a conference, all conferences aren't created equal. And you have some conferences that have a higher concentration of really strong teams. And so their conference record is going to drive a whole different path that they have to travel to get to the playoff. And the selection committee takes that into account, and they should. We have to make sure that they understand that, but we also owe them good tools so that they can determine who has a greater strength of schedule and then how they performed within that schedule that they have. So we're working on making sure that those tools are accurate and that they're effective in representing what a team has actually done in the season so that they can get a fair shot at being ranked and potentially making it into the playoffs. So strength of schedule is a really critical data tool, but I want to emphasize one thing. It is a tool, and it's a tool that human beings will use, and we can't just rely on a computer to spit out a bunch of numbers and say, okay, this is how it's going to be, because football is a human endeavor, and it requires human eyeballs to see it, to understand what happens in the games, but also to use that data set of tools to give them an accurate accounting of what goes on and how they should rank the teams.
Last question for you. The sport right now is obviously at such an interesting point.
Yes.
From your perspective, running the CFP, what do you view as the health of college football right now? What's your view of college football and where it is kind of, if you're a doctor, so to speak?
I would say that it's hard to say that college football is healthy or not, because where we are is really in a transitional period. This is a period of change. And it's always easy to say it's unhealthy because things aren't like they were before. But actually where we are is in a period of change. And how we navigate the change, and you can talk about NIL, you can talk about the transfer portal, you can talk about the playoff. There's so many things that are in flux right now that we're working through that I think it's unfair to say, college football is unhealthy or it's falling apart or it's not what it used to be. It very well could be that when this is done and when we come out of the changes, that we're going to be stronger and better than we ever were before. So what I think we need to do is first be really committed to making good decisions, and that's what the commissioners are doing right now. That's why they're taking their time. That's why they're being deliberate for the good of all of college football. And then fans, we're still going to be playing football. So in a sense, we're building the airplane while we're flying it, but we're still going to play good football. We're still going to see athletes compete at their best, and we're still going to give fans something that they deserve. But when the change is done and when we see football on the other side of this, I think we're going to see a much better product. So we just have to hang in there, not give up, and still love the sport that has given so much to all of us for so long.
No doubt. Well, Rich Clark, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your time here in
Thank
Atlanta.
you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Our thanks to Josh Pate, Damien Harris, Chris Lowe, Rich Clark, and special thanks to SEC Media Days correspondent and AL.com Alabama football reporter Nick Kelly. Look for more from Beat Everyone at SEC Media Days later this week. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Beat Everyone is produced by Matt Scalisi and John Hammondtree. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com. We will see you soon.